everybody, and welcome to another episode of the It's the Pictures podcast. This is episode number 189, and I'm your host, Max Colville.
Ooh.
Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Evan Crean. Hi, Evan. Good.
Hey Max, how's
We
it going?
finally finished Oscar season, and I'm excited to talk about everything that happened at the event, Conan and Brian's hosting, and all that. But we have some other stuff to get to in this packed episode. Not only are we talking about Oscars, but we're talking about director Bong Joon-ho, Oscar winner for Parasite, who has a new movie, Mickey 17, hitting theaters soon. Evan, is Mickey 17 something you're interested in seeing?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'm really interested in seeing it. I saw a trailer for it a few days ago when I went to go see the new Captain America movie, and I'm definitely excited to see it. I'm a little bit bummed that the Boston
Yeah.
press screening is actually tonight because we had plans to record, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll get to it in the not too distant
Right,
future,
yeah, same for
hopefully.
me. Like, I would have loved to see it early, but I think I have a ticket on Friday to go see it. So soon enough, it will be digested by my brain. um,
Yeah, you'll have to let me know how it is, and I'm sure we'll hear about
right.
it in the next
So
episode.
before we get into the Oscars, we had some unfortunate passing of two, well, actors and an actor and an actress that probably were familiar to our audience. I know for Evan and I being
Mm-hmm.
of that age, we certainly knew Michelle Trachtenberg quite a bit, whether or not it was in Harriet the Spy or her various
Yeah.
Nickelodeon um, performances. Evan, do you have any like fond memories of her performances?
I do. I mean, I feel like we kind of grew up alongside her between, her being in The Adventures of Pete and Pete, which was a really fun kind of offbeat show in the Nickelodeon world. And I remember Harry the Spy was one of my sister's favorite movies growing up, so I definitely remember watching it a lot with her and really enjoying the movie. And I always thought that Michelle Trachtenberg was great in that, and I felt she had a charisma that I was kind of excited to see progress as a performer, and I was kind of bummed that I feel like for the most part she didn't really get a lot more chances in terms of like big high profile roles. But I did like her when she popped up in things. I liked her in Buffy the Vampire Slayer as Buffy's sister. I liked when she showed up in Eurotrip, which was like a silly, stupid movie from the early aughts that I remember watching an absurd number of times because it was on HBO all the time. And I was just really bummed to hear that she passed away, being so young.
Yeah, I think most of it was probably the Nickelodeon era, and I don't remember if she was necessarily on all that. She might have been, but I know that she was in that same orbit as like Keenan Thompson and those other shows growing up. Certainly, I know a lot of people would point to
Mm-hmm.
Buffy as a place where they got to know her and see her because that show was so influential. And I read that some people were, when they saw her name, they were hoping that she was going to be appearing in the new Buffy reboot that was announced. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem like it was the case.
Yeah, it is unfortunate too because I feel like Dawn as a character got short shrift a lot. She was treated as kind of like the pesky little sister who was always getting into trouble and always making Buffy's life difficult. So I think it's unfortunate that we didn't get a chance to see a fresh take on that relationship and maybe to see how it would have changed and how they might have, revamped it from the
Right.
original show.
Yeah, so not only did we lose Michelle, but we also lost Gene Hackman. He had passed away alongside his wife and one of their dogs, apparently, in a case that is still being investigated. because it's being deemed suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
He certainly had a long and illustrious career, though. I think he's been retired for like the last 20 years. And
Yeah, he's been retired for a while. I recall that he said that he didn't want to just be that guy who's always cast as like the cranky old man or the grandpa, and so he decided to just kind of hang it up, and he retired, and he moved. Where was he living, in Arizona? And he also was writing
mm,
books. I heard he was writing westerns or something. So he was still keeping busy, even though he had
right.
retired from acting.
And, he had won multiple Academy Awards. He's been in a lot of very memorable films, including The French Connection. For me, the original Superman movie directed by Richard Donner. Uh, his role as Lex
Mm-hmm.
Luthor was probably the first time I ever came across his work, because I think that most of it was more adult. He was in the basketball movie Hoosiers, which I'm going to be talking about as I watched it for the first time after his passing. And whatever movies really come to mind for you, Evan, when you think of Gene Hackman?
I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
back to The Conversation, which I saw within the last year. I think that was a very memorable Gene Hackman performance that I was really excited that I saw because I thought it was fantastic. The French Connection is also a fairly recent watch. I thought he was great in that. I've liked him in the kind of like you mentioned adult roles in the kind of like legal thriller world. Like I thought he was great in The Firm. I remember liking him in Runaway Jury. I really liked him in thrillers like Enemy of the State and No Way Out, which is a really fun role of his. If you've never seen it,
Yeah,
Max.
I want to see Enemy of the State, I think, but you say No Way Out is worth watching too.
Oh, absolutely. It is. It's one of those thrillers that it has a it has a dynamite conclusion, I think, and it's one of those ones that it's best to go in with as little info as possible and just kind of
Right,
watch it
and
all play out.
I know a lot of other people probably came across Gene Hackman in The Royal Tenenbaums, which isn't necessarily one of my favorite Wes Anderson films, but
Yep.
I know for a lot of people that one is certainly up there.
Oh, and the Birdcage too. He's fantastic in the Birdcage. I don't know if you've watched it recently, but I've watched it within the last few years, and I think he's very funny in it, especially in that scene where he's kind of droning on about the foliage and everyone else is just totally bored. But I think it's also weirdly poignant and still relevant. His Republican senator who is he had a colleague who died under very embarrassing circumstances to him and his whole like moral majority kind of situation, and I just think that also remains relevant even though the movie was mid 90s movie. He still has a lot to say about conservative
Mm.
politicians and their kind of hypocrisy. So that's another Gene Hackman role
Yeah,
that I love.
so two great actors. During the Oscars, there was a tribute with Morgan Freeman, who worked with Gene Hackman on two different times. Unforgiven is another great Gene Hackman movie where he plays the villain, and that's a Clint Eastwood directed movie. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
That's a good one.
rest in peace, Michelle and Gene. Then I wanted to plug a novel, Evan. I had the privilege of getting a review copy of recently, and it's written by Myra E. Gates, and she does a lot of work for Roger Ebert and other freelance places. She has a newsletter about um, women directors that she writes on Substack, and she has a new novel out called Cinema Her Way, which is a collection of interviews with various women directors. Karen Kasuma, there's Gillian Anderson, um, plenty of names that you'd be familiar with if you flip through the book, and certainly
Mm-hmm.
even new discoveries for me, anyways. I don't pretend like I know every movie, so I'm excited to dig into the book and find new movies by directors I'm not very familiar with and read their stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Max and I were actually hanging out on Saturday a few days ago, and he showed me his copy of this book, and it's a really great looking book in terms of format, in terms of the artwork that's in it. It's got some really fantastic artwork, and it just looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to read in terms of the interviews and learning about women directors. So
Yeah,
definitely a
and
cool
Gates
looking book
is
you should check out.
touring with the book. She's going to all different places. I saw like her schedule is pretty ridiculous, and at these signings of her book, she's also going to be doing screenings and having the directors there at some of them, and so great opportunity to see some of the movies in the book that maybe don't get shown as often as we'd like to see them shown. So uh, keep a lookout for that. Check out her page and
Mm-hmm.
see where she's touring. Maybe you can check it out and get the book. All right, and I guess Evan, we should talk about what is it, the 97th Oscars?
Yeah,
Yeah.
97. Ooh boy, Oscar's getting up there in years, huh?
This year, as I said on the top, Conan O'Brien was the host, and it was his first time with the hosting duties, and I think he did an excellent job. Everything moved around pretty well. Uh, Nothing was really cringeworthy that he did. Maybe one of his early musical numbers where he's talking about wasting time. That was
Yeah,
kind of
I was not
cringy.
a fan of that.
Um,
Yeah, that was a little cringy. I like Conan O'Brien generally. I think he's funny. I was surprised he wasn't funnier to me. He made me laugh a couple of times, but I thought that I perhaps would be laughing a lot more
yeah,
than I
I
did
guess like
throughout the show.
when one of the films, Nora, started to win like maybe 2 or 3 awards early in the show, that he made a quip about like I guess Americans enjoy watching a movie of people standing up to Russians.
Yeah, that was one of the lines that actually made me laugh. And the other one that really made me laugh is when he was talking about Amy Poehler presenting the best screenplay categories, and he said, she's known for playing joy,
Yeah.
which is the opposite of screenwriting.
Yeah, that was a good one liner. Yeah, as far as he went, like right, we had some reservations, but overall he did pretty well. Um, I'm just gonna go ahead and say like I thought the show was pretty well managed throughout. I wasn't like really up in arms about too much uh, about how it was produced. Sure, I have a few
Hmm.
qualms. I think like the James Bond sequence almost seemed like Amazon bought time on the on the Oscars for something to do with James Bond because like sometimes the Oscars
Yeah.
do spend time and like highlight old movies, whether or not it's like I think a few years ago they had um I guess Lady Gaga do like music from Sound of Music or something because Julie Andrews unfortunately can't sing anymore, so Lady Gaga was doing the parts, and that was kind of interesting. But it's like I guess it's a tough line to straddle because I think the Oscars should be a celebration of all movies, but so often now it's like, oh well, we're crunched for
Hmm.
time and we have to be entertaining, so maybe we don't have time for these old clip shows and flashbacks and remembering where we came from.
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act for sure. I think I love James Bond movies, and I found the tribute very lackluster. It was kind of sad, honestly, and pathetic that that was considered a tribute to Bond because I feel like for songs were good. Like I think they picked great. "Live and Let Die," one of my favorite Bond songs. "Skyfall," one of my favorites. "Diamonds Are Forever," less so, but I didn't think they were sung in any compelling way that made me feel their gravity. And I felt like the choreography and things was also kind of, very meh considering, I'm not expecting pyrotechnics on the stage, but I thought there would be some more compelling singing and dancing and choreography to paying tribute to something as epic as the
Yeah,
James
and
Bond
it's
movies.
almost like, why now? Is it like a particular anniversary year for Bond? Is it um
Mm-hmm.
to have Margaret Qualley out there doing some dancing in a red dress that would kind of like signifies past Bond heroines. It's like, I don't know. I didn't really get it, and I'm sure a lot of people didn't really get it either. And one of the things that like I kind of didn't love, maybe one of the choices that I didn't love on paper, was that they weren't going to perform the best original songs live, which they always do, and sometimes there's been some great moments. When you look at like the selection of the five
Mm-hmm.
that were nominated this year, maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe they were like, well, these aren't exactly super exciting songs. Because instead of having those songs, they did the Bond tribute. They had like a tribute to Quincy Jones and singing The Wiz.
I liked that. I actually did like that quite a bit. I was enjoying seeing Queen Latifah sing. I was enjoying that Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah came out together to introduce, and I was laughing because Whoopi Goldberg referred
Yeah.
to Oprah as Ope, and I was joking with Shauna when we were watching it. I wonder how small the circle of people is that gets to call Oprah Ope, because I'm betting it's not a very big circle. I'm betting not many people can call her Ope. But what I also really liked about it, Max, was that Coleman Domingo was sitting in the front row, stood up, started dancing like it was a concert, and got other people up dancing. And I just thought that was actually really amazing. Was that he was bringing the party and bringing this energy that got people up and dancing and engaging with the show. So I thought
Yeah,
that was really
so
cool.
those were some of the musical performances, and also the show opened with a medley of songs from Wicked, and well, even
Mm-hmm.
Wizard of Oz, right? Because they had Ariana Grande do "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," which is not in Wicked, but
Right.
um, yeah, it really showed that Cynthia Erivo is definitely a one of a kind talent. I was watching it with my wife as well, and that just she was tuning in for the beginning, and she was like, "Wow, she's amazing." She just turned it on like that, and yeah, it was a choice. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
do have a duty to entertain people, and one of the things that the Grammys and Tonys have over the Oscars as like an actual like entertaining show is, they have performances that you want to see. uh, when I watch the Tonys,
Yeah.
I like Broadway musicals, so I'm like, oh, this is like a taste of what these musicals kind of are if I don't get the chance to go to New York to see them. So that's like the joy of watching the Tonys.
That makes sense to me. Although, what's funny, Max, is that I like music and I really enjoy going to concerts, but I don't love watching musical performances on TV. Like when SNL is on, even if it's a band I like or an artist I like, I usually just skip over the musical performance and just watch the comedic clips. So I feel like that might actually be worse for me if I was watching the Tonys or the Grammys, because I'd be like, I don't care about this. I just want to get to the awards.
Oh, that's too bad because like I'm just the opposite, Evan. Like I'll record the Grammys so I can like fast forward the awards and just get to the performances. So we'd have a hard time watching the Grammys together, I imagine.
Yeah, it's true. We would.
So yeah, overall, can't have too many complaints about the show. Um, you can have complaints about some of the people accepting the awards, whether or not Carrie Culkin was again repeating the gag about impregnating his wife, or Adrian Brody taking 7 minutes, thanking everyone and his mom.
Oh my god.
Then you
That was so rude. That was so rude and so full of yourself to suck up that much time and then to tell them to stop playing you off and then to just keep droning on. I was
yeah.
so turned off by that. I just thought that was just absolutely egotistical and really crappy and selfish to do.
And then you had anyone who won for Emilia Perez did not mention the trans community at all. Didn't recognize like, oh, maybe that's important, like what the message of this movie is getting across. Nope, it was just all for the money. I think like they had like,
Mm-hmm.
what was it, the composers of El Mar or something like that, the Oscar winning song, and they're like up there like singing, and it's just like so cringe.
It was cringy because there was the other guy was with them was trying to talk, and then they started singing over him trying to talk, and then he just didn't even get a chance to talk because they kept singing. I thought that was pretty rude too.
And yeah, I guess those were to me like the most obnoxious kind of wins. Um, there were other ones that were
Mm-hmm.
great. For sure. I mean, some of the awards, we'll get into that now. Where I hate to use the word snubs, and people like are up in arms about things after the show, and we'll just lead. We'll share the conversation now. That Anora was the big winner of the night. Um,
Yep.
but there's plenty of
Yep.
surprises, I think. The first of which was Flow, the little indie animation film that took down the Giants and won the best animated feature.
It did. I was pumped about that. I wish it also won Best International, but I thought I was maybe being a little bit greedy, wanting to win both.
Yeah, I think like funny enough, the last film that was like nominated in animation, international, and documentary was the movie with a similar starting with an F, four-letter word, was Flea, uh, which which
Flea.
yeah,
Okay,
which
I
came out a
thought
few
that's what
years
you're
ago,
gonna
which
say.
I loved that film. Um,
Yeah, it was a
um,
fantastic movie.
but yeah, big win for Flow, and that kind of statement in animation. Evan, like the past 3 years, people have pointed out that like you had Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio win last year. You had The Boy and the Heron by Hayao Miyazaki, and this year you have Flow win. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
the animation branch is diversifying, or at least picking different movies than the big Disney Pixar machine that so often wins these awards.
Yeah, I'm happy to see more indies. As much as I love Disney and Pixar, it's nice to see some other people getting some
Right,
attention.
and that's not like probably my Inside Out 2 was probably the biggest grosser of the year. Um, the Wild Robot was a DreamWorks production, and that was also very highly reviewed. And it was my pick for animated feature this year. So certainly uh, great animated films for all. I think the category, if anybody wants to like check out the five that were nominated, I did happen to watch all five, and they're all unique in their own ways. Like I think like, is it like Memoirs of a Snail? It's like dark and adult oriented, and Wallace and Gromit always does a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the all five there were really good. Um,
I'm embarrassed to say I think I only
you
saw
mean
Flea. I
Flow?
don't think I saw
Yeah.
any of the other nominees. Or yeah, Flo. Sorry,
Yeah.
because we were talking about Flea. That's what I'm thinking of now.
Yeah, there was plenty of records broken throughout the night. Zoe Saldana won for her performance in Emilia Perez for Best Supporting Actress, and she was, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
what was she saying? The first Latina winner in that category, or I forget what she said that she was the first of. Colombian born,
I'm
maybe.
not. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah,
And
maybe.
then um, the Wicked, uh, the costume designer for Wicked, Paul Tazwell, was up there, and he said he was the first black man to win in costume design. And it's nice to see these
Mm-hmm.
records broken. No Other Land was, I don't know if it's necessarily the first movie without U.S. distribution to win an Oscar, but it won and brought home that award, and that was pretty shocking for that movie to make this big groundswell of momentum enough to be not only nominated but win the award. Yeah, Evan, I didn't watch it on Hulu, but apparently Hulu had this idea, like similar to what Tubi was doing with the Super Bowl, where they'd stream the show, and for people, I don't know if people who didn't have Hulu, or like they were just providing it for them. But when I asked people on the Substack for It's the Pictures, I was like, what was the biggest upset of the night? What did you think about the show? They were like, the biggest upset of the night was that Hulu wasn't set to go long. It stopped right at 10:35 when, the Oscars tend to go a little bit longer. And I guess right as they were going to announce Best Actress, the feed was cut. And they missed the winner of Best Actress and Best Picture. And yeah, so
Yikes. That's a pretty big oversight. I have Hulu Live, which, basically is my cable replacement. And so I was just DVRing it on Hulu Live. So I was just, DVRing the broadcast, so I didn't have that problem, but I can imagine being pretty pissed off if that happened to me.
Maybe at that point it wasn't it was a done deal, but I know that one of the other big surprises for people in the night was that Mikey Madison won over Demi Moore. If those were the two favorites for Best Actress, and maybe why they had that category at the end of the night, given how close that voting must have been. But
it was a surprise for sure.
But I saw a joke, Evan, that someone said that's Mikey Madison winning over Demi Moore is basically the plot of The Substance.
I was just, it's funny. I still haven't seen The Substance, but I think I cracked a joke similar to that. It's kind of like it becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy or something like that. It's like, it's kind of sad, actually, that she didn't win. Not to take away from Mikey Madsen's performance, which I think is a great performance. I just think it's a little too on the nose for that to happen to Demi Moore in this situation. It's such a bummer.
Think there's a troublesome thing on a whole where I guess that Best Actress awards tend to skew for younger actresses, whereas Best Actor awards tend to skew for older actors. A lot of people were saying like maybe there was some hesitation to give the award to Timothée Chalamet, even though he appeared in 2 Best Picture nominees in 2025 and was highly acclaimed for his performance as Bob Dylan. I guess that just goes into the same share as Austin Butler as Elvis, right? These two young actors who tried to take on these biopics and of famous music performers, maybe similar to Rami Malek's win and for Bohemian Rhapsody, and they couldn't take their performances across the proverbial Oscar finish line.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's not that simple in terms of like why people didn't necessarily vote. But I was also just thinking of Elle Fanning referred to him as Timmy Chalamet, and I also made the joke, I wonder how many people get to call him Timmy Chalamet. I imagine he doesn't love being called Timmy as an adult.
But like I said, Anora was the big winner. It was nominated for 6 awards possible on the night, and it won 5 of the 6. Sean Baker,
that's impressive.
4 of them were assigned directly to Sean Baker, as given that it's an indie film, he not only wrote it, directed, produced it, but he edited it as well. So he matches Walt Disney as the first person to win 4 Oscars in one evening, I think, and like he's the first one to win 4 Oscars for the same project. When Disney did it, he had it was multiple different shorts and projects.
It's impressive for sure. Was it surprising to you, Max? Because I feel like Enora's been performing quite well in the awards circuit, and so I don't think I was especially surprised. I thought maybe there might be more distribution among some of the awards that Enora ended up winning, but I feel like once it took screenplay and editing, I thought, okay, it's a shoe in for
Yeah,
director and
that was a
picture
done
at
deal.
this
Like
point.
I thought like I knew that like Conclave had it won its screenplay award, and that's pretty much what Conclave took home. And like editing for a long time, this
Mm-hmm.
is like inside baseball Oscars. Editing for a long time was like seen as a precursor for Best Picture. If there was like a big movement in the editing community for a certain movie. And so, like, once Honora picked up screenplay and editing, I was like, it's a done deal. Um, at least
Mm-hmm.
that's how it felt for me for the rest of the evening. Um, yeah. Let's see some other information. Oh, if you don't remember, Honora was the film that won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival this year. It joins only three other movies, one by our topic this night, Bong Joon-ho, with the four movies
Mm-hmm.
are Anora, Parasite, The Lost Weekend, and Marty. And so, the Neon has been picking up these movies, the Palme d'Or winners, including Parasite, and sometimes they get something like what Titan, which would no one precisely make a good Oscar movie. And sometimes they get something like
Mm.
Anora, which goes the whole way.
Yeah. Yes, it did.
Were you surprised by anything? Just maybe the Demi Moore thing, or was there other things that?
Yeah, I think I was definitely surprised that Demi Moore didn't take home Best Actress. It seemed like there was a groundswell of support for her, so I was pretty surprised by that. I don't think I was surprised that Brutalist won cinematography. It won something else, right?
Yeah,
Once did it win score? I didn't remember the score of it for the life of me. I was surprised by some of the omissions in the in memoriam segment, but I feel
yeah.
like that happens every year. This past one, I had forgotten how many. I know it's always like it's in memoriam and it's all famous people, so it's always kind of like, oh wow, we lost a lot of people. But I feel like we really lost a lot of like
Evan,
titans in the past
it
year,
gets worse as we
and
get
I
older.
was, I know, I know, but like people like losing like Bob Newhart, who I forgot passed away, and I was just like, he's one of those people who's been old forever, so it's kind of like I just was like, oh, he's gonna live forever. You know what I mean? People like him, James Earl Jones, like those, wow, man, I can't believe we lost them. But I was surprised that we didn't see Michelle Trachtenberg, which we talked about. I was surprised that we didn't see Tony Todd or Martin Mull in the in memoriam segment. So I think that was a surprise that the people they always decide to omit. I'm always scratching my head like, oh, why didn't those people end up in the in memoriam
Yeah,
segment?
I don't know if there's necessarily a rhyme or reason, or if they should just like, I don't know, keep a list, like a QR list if you want to see the rest. But it's like even that I think would be distasteful, right? Like if they were like, oh well, these are the ones we didn't have time
Mm-hmm.
for on the broadcast, but if you're interested in more names, then go to the website. They kind of did that with the best
Right.
original songs, where like when they were going to announce it, they were like, "Oh, if you'd like to hear the five songs, go to the QR code, and we have like links to the five songs or something." And I was like, "That QR code is doing a lot of work." So I don't know if that's necessarily the answer, but you know, ultimately, for me and you, or maybe people who like really love movies, like maybe the Oscars needs to be like WrestleMania. Like while I haven't watched WrestleMania in a long time, I know that like it's almost like a weekend affair now, where like they have it on Saturday and Sunday night, and like it's a 2 night event, and it's a big deal, and you know, um, they get across everything they need to get across, and more. Um,
That's not where I thought you were going with that, by the way. I thought, like, okay, are we going to have, like, tables, ladders, and chairs match?
Yes. Yes.
Cage match? Is that how it's going to be like WrestleMania? The nominees are going to have to duke it out with each other? Because that would be a very different
I
Oscars.
mean, Will Smith was banned for 10 years for just a slap. So I mean, like, I don't think the fighting would go over very well. Um, but no,
Yeah,
I think
probably
like,
not.
and maybe TCM plays that role, right, where they have a month of Oscar movies, and if you really want to watch Oscar movies, you can like
Mm-hmm.
use that as a bridge to get there. But I don't know. For me, would I want more movie appreciation? Yeah. And whereas I know like maybe people who didn't even necessarily watch any of the movies and they're just watching just to see the stars, like, and the gorgeous outfits and costumes and what have you, that it probably runs a little too long for them.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe for someone, Evan, like, I made a point not to watch like all the other shows leading up to the Oscars, whereas like you could have watched Kieran Culkin give a speech probably 10 times already because he's pretty much swept all the award circuits. So if you watched the Critics' Choice and you watched the Golden Globes and you watched the SAGs, you probably heard him a lot. So I don't know.
Yeah, thankfully I eschew most of those award shows, so I just had to hear his speech the one
Right,
time
that's
at the
what I mean. Like,
Oscars.
there are people who certainly will watch every show, but me, I'm happy with just like, yeah, give me the results, and I'll wait for the Oscars.
Mm-hmm. Right, I'll read that one Variety email that's constantly updating with the winners.
All right. Was there anything else about the show you wanted to add? It was generally
No,
agreeable.
I'm good.
Do you have? I'm gonna put you on the spot here, and do you think within like maybe the last 10 years you would place Anora in the top half or in the bottom half of your favorite Best Picture winners of the last decade?
Mm. Uh, I'm just trying to think of some of the other recent Best Picture winners. I would probably rank it
Okay.
more toward the top half than the bottom half because I really did enjoy it. I didn't think it was like mind-blowingly good, but I really enjoyed it. And if I'm being honest, I don't always love the
Mm-hmm.
Best Picture selections anyway. So, kind of thinking big picture about Best Picture, probably would either somewhere toward the middle, maybe edging toward the top.
Yeah, I
But
was
what about
thinking
you?
more in the bottom half, like 6 or 7. I know, like, at the top of my head, and because I looked at a few lists today, so I know the 10 pretty well now. And I definitely put, like, Parasite, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Oppenheimer, Moonlight. Those four would definitely be, like, way up there near the top for me. Um, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, like stuff near the bottom would probably be like, well, Green Book would be at the very bottom. Um, but then like,
Oh hell yeah! If they could knock it off the list
maybe
entirely, I
maybe
would.
like right above that is Coda, because I think Coda's a fine movie, but not exactly mind blowing. Um, I,
Mm-hmm.
Even though as much as like Guillermo del Toro, maybe like Shape of Water would be down there. Um, that's probably where Honora would sit. I really liked Spotlight when it came out. I think that's another one that would be in the top 5. So,
Mm.
um,
Yeah, Spotlight's good. Yeah, Shape of Water also would be toward the
hmm
bottom of my list.
but yeah, I mean, like overall, there's been I've liked a lot of the Best Picture winners over the last 10 years. You know, there was only like a few times that I'd be like, I think I'd switch it out, but um,
Mm-hmm.
not often. Um, okay, let's go to our feature and talk about the great
Yeah.
Bong Joon-ho, the Oscar winner, the only one. I think he's now the
Mm-hmm.
only director to have a uh, film not in the English language win Best Picture, and that's with Parasite. Yeah,
Impressive.
and I noticed during the Oscars that Warner Brothers couldn't be bothered to advertise Mickey 17 that comes out in like 5 days and just say, "Oh, from the director of
Womp
Parasite."
womp.
I mean, like, come on, Warner Brothers, what are you doing? Um,
Yeah, it's definitely a missed opportunity.
um, I saw an article, Evan, and I didn't read through it too much, but I guess like Lil White Lies wrote about looking at Bong Joon-ho's speech at the Oscars. Like he mentioned, like um, I actually have a T-shirt of the quote on it, where like if you can get past the 5-inch subtitles on the screen and read them, yeah,
Oh, the one
you
inch
you could
barrier.
open up a world of cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's talking about like how that discussion has changed over the last 5 years, or if it even has. Um, but
Yeah, I wish I could say I feel like it has changed. I don't. I don't feel like it has, honestly. I mean, I'm fine with subtitles. Obviously, I like watching, films in other languages, but I also just watch movies and TV with subtitles on
yeah,
in English anyway. So I don't mind subtitles one
yeah,
bit.
and me like I've loved Japanese animation for so long, and watching it in its native language is important to me. Even though there has been great English dubs, given how many shows have been dubbed. Um, I just got kind of used to it, and most of the time when you're used to it, Evan, it's like they're there, but you're like your brain is kind of like just imagining the people speaking those lines, not in the language that they're speaking. It's like some kind
Mm-hmm.
of it's this
Yeah.
great like computation the brain does, where it's almost like I'm not hearing them speak in their native language, and most times I mentioned it's like Japanese. I'm just hearing I'm hearing them speak the lines in English, even though they're not speaking it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that.
But Bong Joon Ho has been one of the most acclaimed South Korean directors. He, their film industry isn't all that lengthy. I did a report on uh, their industry, Evan, like really like after Parasite 1, and movies in South Korea
Mm-hmm.
are like I think really in their infancy. I think that it really started
Interesting.
taking off like in the mid '90s, early aughts, and you can't really find too many um, famous directors or movies from South Korea before that time. Um, yeah,
Hmm.
it's
I
really
didn't know
worth
that.
checking out and um, seeing how young that industry is over there. Um, but Bong Joon Ho really he had a small film that I have still not seen yet called Barking Dogs Never Bite, but that wasn't his real takeoff. His real takeoff into the scene was this movie called Memories of Murder, which came out in 2003, and I loved this film. I don't know if you've seen this, Evan, but
No, but I'm looking it up now. I'm like, ooh,
it's
this
like
sounds like it's good.
so it's described as like a neo noir crime thriller, and like I'd say like it's as good as like David Fincher's Zodiac. Like it's almost like in that like framework because um, Song
Okay.
Kang Ho, who is an actor who would go on to work with Bong Joon Ho on a number of films, including The Host and Parasite, plays this detective who is looking into a string of rapes and murders that took place in the late 1980s. This was based on a true story, and for a long time, it was a unsolved mystery, and that's kind of why I kind of would match it with Zodiac as well. And
Mm-hmm.
not only does it's a look into kind of like what they do to investigate it, but also looks like how inept the police department is at some point, like trying to put this together. Like he has a partner that like just drop kicks people and like they just like pull whoever they think might be responsible, and they're not like very thorough in their investigation. And I think there's like crime scenes that just get cover up. It's like really botched. Um, but it definitely has a specific tone about it, and um, this like airiness to it. And I watched it for the first time a few years ago, and I had heard someone tell me like it was like their favorite of his, and yeah, it's certainly up there for me. Like if I was going to recommend another film of Bong Joon-ho's to watch other than Parasite, this would probably be the first one I'd point to. Um,
Okay.
I really think it's fantastic, and you know, yeah.
I'm
According to
sold.
this Wikipedia article, here it says like within a year of its debut, the film was received as a cult film, and it's referred to these days as one of the best crime films of the 21st century and one of the greatest Korean films of all time.
Wow, those are quite those are quite the kudos.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen Memories of Murder, um, Criterion put out a disc of it fairly recently. That's a great way to watch it. Before that, I think it was like kind of shoddier quality on. I think it was on Amazon. I think like Evan, you might have a copy of this because I think Neon might have redistributed it, and it might be like in one of their
Oh,
like awards boxes. Yeah.
I should go back and look now because I have to say Neon knows how to put together a nice looking awards screener box. I have
Yeah.
to say.
So I think that they were in charge of bringing this film kind of back out into the scene after Parasite won. So they were like, oh well, why not? Um, then I guess like even more like successful, I'd say, was The Host. It was a kind of like science fiction esque film where it plays up these big things where like there's this giant monster, and the monster has like almost kidnapped uh the star's daughter, which the star of this movie is Song Kang Ho again, and he has to go through like anything he can to rescue his daughter. And I don't know, it's like when since The Host existed, when Parasite was announced, people thought, "Oh, is he making like another monster movie?" But he didn't. Um,
Not
but
quite.
The Host is another very good movie of his. Um,
It's one of those ones that's been on my list for a while that I've been meaning to see because you say the words "the host" and it just I feel like it conjures like a whole imagery because this is such a well-known, horror sci-fi movie.
yeah, it says here on, and my apologies for using Wikipedia because it's not necessarily the most trustworthy source, but that's just what I'm using tonight. It says that
Hmm.
it is regarded as a landmark of Korean cinema and remains among South Korea's highest grossing films. So yeah, if you haven't seen either of those uh, excellent movies, I didn't actually watch those in anticipation of the podcast, Evan. So my knowledge of them is from past watches, but I did watch Mother.
Hmm.
And Mother
Yeah,
is one that
that's
I
right.
had never seen before. And out of his entire filmography, I thought it was like a blind spot. And it was. It's another great movie in his filmography. This one came out in 2009, and it stars Kim Hae-ja and Wong Bin. And the plot follows a mother who, after her intellectually disabled son is accused of murder, she attempts to find the true killer to get her son freed from prison. And there's
Mm-hmm.
like this relationship between her and her son that is explored during the film, where it's almost like kind of queasy. They share a bed still together, even though he is an adult, and she's
Mm-hmm.
very protective of him. Um, of course, his stunted development might play a lot into her kind of mothering of him, but
Mm-hmm.
she she tries her best, and like over the course of the film, you of course opens up and you learn more about these people and what happened, and um, you go to see what lengths she'll go to prove her son's innocence. And I was pretty entertained, and it kept me guessing. I didn't exactly pick out who the killer was right away, and I was definitely entertained by it. So um, I feel like this is probably a movie that's underserved, because it's not like it doesn't have the awards gravitas of some of his other movies, or like it's not like the science fiction
Right.
like shooter, like we're gonna talk about Snowpiercer shortly. Like that's an action movie that you can just jump into. Um,
Right.
I feel like Mother is kind of like way down on the totem pole of movies that people would probably see of his, but it's absolutely worth the attention as well. Um, Evan, I remember that Snowpiercer
Yes.
won BAFTA, and that was a huge surprise. Can you talk a little bit about Snowpiercer?
Yeah, sure. So, Snowpiercer came out, I believe, in 2016. Or, no, 2013? Yes, that's forever ago. This was actually, I think, the second BAFTA Awards that we hosted. That where it ended up winning our Best Picture, and I believe it took home some other prizes that year. But yeah, Snowpiercer is a sci-fi action movie. It's a dystopian film. It's in a future where there's kind of like a new ice age, and there's this guy played by Ed Harris who had built this train that's kind of growing around the world, and yeah, people live on like the last surviving members of
It's
humanity are on this
it's
train
definitely a
that's going
class
around the
system too
world.
on the train, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you have it's a highly segregated class system on the train. You have the people way in the back of the train who are the lowly people. They're scrapping. They feed them these like gross like
Yeah.
protein bars, right, or something. And the leadership of that group is Chris Evans, Jamie Bell, and John Hurt. And they decide that they're gonna stage a coup and they're gonna fight their way to the front of the train to get to Ed Harris and demand respect. And so yeah, it's a thriller. It's they're fighting from train car to train car, and that's all really interesting. Is seeing them like fight their way to the front, fighting all these people, whether they're rich people, henchmen. There's a really great art direction in this movie, great use of space. It's very claustrophobic. It's very intense. It's it's one hell of a movie, I have to say. I feel like there's a good reason why they ended up adapting this
Yeah.
into a TV show with Jennifer Connelly and Daveed Diggs, and I think that ran for several seasons. I think it
Yeah.
recently finished within the last like couple of years, but I know it lasted for several seasons, and so it's a compelling movie, and I was a big fan of it when it came out. I haven't had a chance to rewatch it, but I remember really liking it. I think there's some moments where it maybe descends into the
Yeah.
absurd, But I feel like that's kind of unavoidable when you have someone like Tilda Swinton in this kind of movie, because I feel like she often plays the kind of like these really kooky, absurd characters.
Yeah, and this was yeah,
What about you, Max? What do
yeah,
you
this
think of
ended up
Snowpiercer?
being Bong Joon-ho's like kind of first English language film because 85% of it is in English. I think there's some actors
Mm-hmm.
who appear in the movie that still speak in Korean. Um, but yeah, there was I remember this was especially interesting where the movie took a long time to come out in America because the Weinstein Company was apparently very angry with whatever cut was given to him. Remember Harvey Weinstein, and like he uh, wanted to cut it up and make it into a different film, and Bong Joon Ho just wouldn't do that, and so like I think it took a long time, if I remember correctly, for this movie to actually come out. It was like delayed a few times.
Mm-hmm. I'd forgotten about that drama associated with it. I mean, screw Harvey Weinstein. Fuck that guy.
um, I guess like it says here that with a budget of 40 million, it remains one of the most expensive South Korean productions ever. And you know, it looks like he used all that money on the screen because um,
Mm-hmm.
it's a pretty intense action movie and a lot of great uh,
Yep.
production design and just like staging of it. Like I remember like some of the like gunfights in the movie are just really thrilling, even though like you think that they shouldn't be because you're on this claustrophobic train, and but they do a really excellent job of it.
They definitely do. I'm always think of Allison Pill in this movie. She's what, like the school teacher who
Yeah,
takes out like this like submachine gun and is like firing like madly at them.
yeah. So yeah, I again a different side of Bong because like he, I think that this is like his only pure action movie. I don't. Although I've read Mickey 7, which is what Mickey 17 is based off of, I don't necessarily consider that like heavy duty action. So I'm excited to see
Mm-hmm.
what that movie actually turns out to be. But yeah, I think Snowpiercer is definitely an action movie.
Yeah, for sure.
And then if you want to hear me talk about Okja at length, you can look at the one of my guest appearances on Spoiler Piece Theater. I was
Oh man, that was the
yeah,
one where you came on.
and I talked about Okja there, and I actually really enjoy it. I know if I remember correctly, Evan, you don't really care for it as much. Um,
No, not really. I think there's it's compelling uh in that it is a very incisive commentary on, you know,
consumption of
like
meat.
the I don't even know what the yeah, the function of meat and like the farming complex, I guess. I don't know, the the meat eating world. I think it definitely is, it is very brutal and unflinching, and it's very difficult to watch if you don't have a strong
Yeah, so
stomach. And I think it's effective in that way. Like, but I just like I never want to see it or think about it again because it just was so difficult and just gory, gross, nasty. I don't even know what you. I don't know what else you want to say about it. It was. It's not an easy
yeah,
watch.
this
That's for
was
sure.
another film that was at a center of controversy. This one premiered, I guess, at um, the Cannes Film Festival, and Netflix had already been attached to it, and it was in competition. And it was the last time that like Netflix would have a movie in competition, because there's rules in Cannes that like they have to have an exclusive theatrical agreement before coming out on streaming, and
Mm-hmm.
Netflix was very like, oh no, we're a streaming company, we're not going to have a theatrical engagement for this movie. um, So that's another uh, little tidbit there for Bong Joon-ho history. The movie itself features a young girl who kind of lives in this like small province, I guess, in South Korea, and she is given this like hybrid pig animal. Uh, and I guess like there was like 16 of them or something giving out around the world. Um, and the idea is that they'd raise these animals and see how they go and see if they're a suitable meat source because they're supposed to be like organic or sustainable or some way, but like of course the little girl wasn't given this information, and when her animal gets taken from her, she'll do everything she can to save it and get it back. And
Mm-hmm.
this movie, I think Bong Joon Ho worked again with what was Tilda Swinton in this one too. I think.
Yeah, she was in this, and Jake Gyllenhaal. And I think, looking back at my notes about the movie, I feel like I didn't love them in it because I feel like they were kind of trending the more like
Yeah,
absurd direction and kind of like over the top silly in a movie that just it felt like that was the wrong
yeah.
tone
Jake
for what they were
Gyllenhaal is
doing.
crazy in this. Yeah,
And weirdly enough, yeah, and weirdly enough, I mean, Max, I'm sure you know that I don't love Paul Dano, but I actually did remember liking him in in this movie, which is it's a rare thing when I'm like, yeah, Paul Dano.
um, yeah, yeah. I pretty much I'm looking at like I looked up the film and I'm like, oh yeah, I basically figured out the plot of the movie there and shared it with you. And yeah, like Evan said, like they go when she ultimately finds Okja again at like a meat processing plant, it gets very heavy, and a lot of these animals
Mm-hmm.
are, kind of murdered for their meat, and she has to do everything she can to save her animal, and even even if she saves one, she won't be able to save all of them, of course. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
It's rough.
yeah, I think like Evan, it's funny. Like I bought like Criterion ended up getting the rights for this sometime later to do a physical copy, like years and years later. And I said to myself, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
necessarily if I'd watch the movie again, even though I did enjoy, like I'll say enjoy it. I thought it was a good, really good movie. Um, but like it had special features on the disc that I'm like, oh yeah, I want to have that, and want to own his
Mm-hmm.
movies on physical media. So that's why I think I own
Yeah, I get it. I'm
it.
glad that you like it, Max. I feel like that's when we're often on spoiler piece when we're like, usually it's like, well, it wasn't for me, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad someone
Right.
had fun with it.
Okay. So where are we? Yeah, we're doing okay. The Of course, the next movie and the last one that we'll highlight is Parasite. Of course, we've talked about the movie a few times already tonight. Of course, according to its spectacular run in the Oscars 5 years ago, and that almost seems like a lifetime ago, Evan, because it came out like where won the Best Picture, I guess, in March of 2020, and that was when the world went to
Mm-hmm.
shit. Like like right before COVID, and now he's releasing a movie uh five some years after that, and it just feels like a totally different planet from when he last released a movie. But
It's
um
true.
Parasite once again sees him collaborate with Sung Kang Ho, and he has a family that they're uh kind of lower level family, if you will. They have less means, almost I'd say like poverty level. They have an apartment that's below ground. They almost like live in a basement,
Yep.
and
Right. With like drunks off the street are like peeing in
right,
their window
yeah, and
almost.
like I like they're using like their cell phone like while they're on the toilet just to get like Wi-Fi or a signal. I remember that being very funny. Um, and I guess the son of the family comes across this guy who he knew in school, and the guy's like, "Oh, I tutor this family, and I'm going away for a little while. Do you mind if you would like go over there and tutor their child for me while I'm gone?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, I
Mm-hmm.
could use the money." So he goes over there, and he kind of finds like this family has like different kind of needs, and like um they have a lot of servants, if you will. Like they have a maid service, they have a driver, they have like an art teacher, and
Yep.
he gets the idea that he's going to kind of push those specialists out and help his family kind of con their way into um, these positions, and kind of get their whole family on that payroll, and kick all these jobs out. And like halfway through the movie, it's like, oh yeah, everything's gone the way that they had imagined it. Right? They're all in these great positions,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you discover like there's actually like hidden compartments in this house, this like, beautiful, gorgeous house that they're like staying in, and
Yep.
there's a
Mm-hmm.
guy living in the basement.
Yeah, and like this whole hidden like apartment that's under the house, and it's the previous maid. It's her husband that's been living there, and he is living down there because he was in such like horrible debt that he couldn't like live in the world, and so she would like sneak him food down there, and he's been living down there, and he's been running out of food since they got her fired, and so she like shows up to try and like go down and get him or give him the food, and the family is all there like having a great time, like partying in this in their employer's house when this happens.
Yeah, and you know what's so great about the movie? There's a number of things. There's obviously we had already mentioned like
Mm-hmm.
how low they are, like below ground, and that how high this affluent family is. And there's a sequence um, where there's like torrential downpours, and you see them kind of run down like all these stairways and stairwells in the rain, and like the water's flooding into their little apartment because it's such in a poor position. And it's just like such symmetry between what the haves and the have-nots. um
Mm-hmm.
and then it's just like so well written. It goes to some like crazy places, which if you haven't seen the movie, or if you haven't seen the movie in a while, I don't want to ruin it. um, I just remember I saw this movie because like typically at the Toronto International Film Festival, they'll open the Thursday morning critic screenings with like the Palme d'Or winners, or like at least the buzziest films from Cannes. And that was like the first
Mm-hmm.
thing, either the first or the second thing I saw when I went to TIFF that year. I think the ever Korean film Burning was there that year as well, which is another excellent film. And
Agree.
and I was just like, yeah, nothing's beating this. The buzz for that movie coming out of the theater was spectacular.
Yeah, this is a really great film. I mean, as I think you've kind of surmised, listeners, in talking about Bong Joon-ho's films, there is a very strong class commentary that I feel like is kind of imbued in a lot of his films, and I feel like this one really brings it to the forefront in a way that is just so incisive and so poignant and so much of a gut punch that you can see why it resonated so much with people. And even though it's been several years since I've seen it, it still kind of lives on in my brain as this really incredible commentary about the haves and the have-nots that is just so memorable because of what it has to say.
Yeah, and it's truly that special film that like went across boundaries. I think I remember like the movie that might have like upset it at the Oscars. They're kind of positioning like 1917, the war movie, which I think that movie's fine. I remember enjoying it quite a bit, but
Mm-hmm.
um, it's almost like Parasite was undeniable. It was like everybody was like
Yep.
saying like this is the best movie I've seen in years, and if you're gonna reward a movie, it has to be this one. And you know, I don't know if it was just the perfect movie at the perfect time. Certainly, there's been other movies that have moved people, international movies. We earlier in the 2000s we had Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon by Ann Lee that had tons of Oscar nominations and certainly had the gravitas and like box office and what have you to um, win the Oscars, if you can win the Oscars. Um, and then, of
Yeah.
course, the year that Green Book won, Roma was highly acclaimed, and people thought like, oh, maybe it just wasn't the right time, or they thought like, even though that movie was heavily awarded, like it just couldn't break through to win Best Picture. But Parasite was definitely the movie to do it. And yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
like even if you don't like subtitled movies, I think you have to try to give this one a watch. I mean, I can't recommend it enough over like maybe any Oscar movie from the last decade. Um, certainly there's other groundbreaking movies such like Moonlight, but uh, Parasite is just really entertaining from beginning to end, and I can't recommend it enough.
Same here. I think it is the perfect mix, really, of having something really important to say and being very entertaining at the same time, and then also hitting you emotionally at the end, and not spoiling anything about the ending, but just it's a real gut punch kind of ending.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's Bong Joon-ho. Of course, his new movie Mickey 17 is coming to theaters, and um, Evan and I have expressed interest in seeing the film, and we'll certainly report back soon on that one. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
overall, I think I've enjoyed every movie that he's made. He's a fantastic filmmaker, and if I've been eagerly wanting to do an episode on his movies for a long time. So, if there's one that you haven't seen, or if you've seen Parasite and you want to watch more, um, it's you could pretty much go in any direction, um, and find
Yeah.
a great movie. All right, Evan. Before we do our brief what you've been watching, let's do some station identification. As always, you can
Yeah. Let's do
find
it.
the podcast on Blue Sky. You can find me on Blue Sky as well, maxcolville.com, Max Colville. You can email us at itsthepictures@gmail.com. Evan, where can they find you?
Mm-hmm. Let's see. I'm on Threads, Blue Sky, Twitter, still Instagram, Letterboxd, and I'm in those places as Real Recon. That's real as in film reel, and I'm also over on Spoiler Piece Theater
Yeah, if you want to
each
hear
week.
Evan more, and like Evan does really recent releases on Spoiler Piece. So if there's something like that is in the theaters that you don't know if you want to see, um, give our sister podcast Spoiler Piece a try, and mm, give it a good listen. Um,
Thanks for the
what
plug.
else do we got here? We got the Substack newsletter. It's the
Yep.
pictures.substack.com. I have recently written about Robert Eggers. I kind of tried to push Evan a long time to do an episode on Robert Eggers, but it just wasn't happening. And
I think I'd only seen like
Yeah.
one of his movies or something. I think I'd
Yeah.
only seen The Witch. I was like, I don't feel very well equipped to talk
So,
about the subject.
with the release of Nosferatu on home video, I talked about a little bit of his production design in the terms of The Witch and Nosferatu, and really enjoyed that movie. And I think it makes an excellent home video release if you haven't seen it yet. And what else?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Great cinematography. I honestly, to go back to the Oscars for a brief second, for me, I thought the cinematography for Nosferatu, a movie I didn't love, was way better than the cinematography for The Brutalist, which was
Yeah.
also very impressive.
And then I also did a quick article on where you can stream the Oscar movies. Even though the show is over, you may want to watch some of these at home, or like maybe you didn't see Anora and want to see it.
Hmm.
I think that the article is a great way to look into some of these different movies and where they are available.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really helpful thing that you're doing for our for our audience here.
Alrighty. Evan, we're into the home stretch here. Let's see if I can do a quick game here with you, because I enjoyed that game last time.
Oh, right, our game.
Evan, it's time to play
Okay.
our movie guessing game again, and uh, let's see if we can get you there a little bit faster, and see if you get the movie. Last time, our answer was Gandhi. This time, I have a
Hmm.
movie for you that was released in December of 1996.
Okay.
It is produced by James L. Brooks.
1996. James L. Brooks. Okay.
Let's see. Another one that I won't absolutely give it away.
Oh, is it
No.
as good as it gets? Okay.
Um, let's see here. I feel like that will give it away, but we'll try our best here. It has a it has some famous catchphrases that were shouted by its best supporting actor winner. No,
Oh, is this Clueless?
its best
Damn.
supporting actor
All right, so famous.
used to.
Oh, okay. I think I know. Is it
That's it.
Jerry Maguire?
Yes. I was trying not to say like Cuba Gooding Jr. or like Tom Cruise.
No, but when you said famous catchphrases, all I could
Yes.
think of was "Show me the
Yeah,
money,"
yeah.
so that was a good hint.
Or you had me at hello.
Right.
um,
Yep. Or who's coming with me? Isn't that one of something like that?
no, but yeah, I figured that was a good one. I'm glad I was
That
able
was
to
a fun
lead you
one.
along without giving it to you right away, and you had some great guesses.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got it.
Okay, Evan, what have you been watching?
So, actually, in anticipation of the Oscars, I sat down and watched September 5th, which I believe was nominated for best Was
It
it
was
adapted
screenplay. I don't
screenplay?
know if it was
Or was it
adapted or
original
yeah, it was
screenplay?
probably adapted.
Yeah, I think it might have been. Or yeah. So I wanted to see it. It takes place in 1972. It's chronicling of the ABC sports team. They're covering the 1972 Summer Olympics in Munich, and then the Israeli athletes at the Olympics are taken hostage by a group of terrorists, and it's about them basically as a sports news team deciding that they are going to follow this story closely, and they're going to cover it, and they're going to be there, up to the minute, as much as they can tell about this story, and they run with it. It stars Peter Sarsgaard and John Majaro. They're kind of like the leads. Ben Chaplin is in it. Um, and yeah, it's a very taut hour and 35 minutes. It's very tense. It's, very well done if you like your kind of movies about journalists doing their job and feeling the responsibility to tell the story and to give people as much information as they can. And I found it to be very compelling, but also very emotional and heartbreaking, because if you know anything about what happened, the hostages, as they were, being taken by the terrorists to the airport, they were the terrorists got in exchanged gunfire with the German authorities, and all of the hostages ended up dying in the fight against the terrorists and the police. So it's a very tragic moment from Olympic history. It's a tough one, but very well done, I think, in terms of story and editing, and just real kind of down and dirty story about people having to make really hard decisions about coverage and finding ways around limitations, like, the Olympic Village is kind of shut down, and they're like not allowing people in, but then, they get one of the people on the news team, they disguise him as an athlete so he can sneak in and out film canisters and supplies to, Peter Jennings to be able to, do his coverage from like up on a balcony observing, what's going on. So it was a movie that I was looking to catch at some point, and then I just realized it was available on Paramount Plus. So I'm like, well, this is great. This is a movie I wanted to see anyway, and it's Oscar nominated, so I got it in just under the wire. Have you seen
No,
this one,
and like
Max?
I heard like there was some pundits who were like really high on it and thought like it was going to be nominated for Best Picture, and it just kind of like got lost in the shuffle. But from your description, it's something that I probably would really enjoy. I really enjoy these like investigative journalism movies. For the most part, I remember like The Insider. I really love. I don't know how much this is like that. Maybe more like Spotlight or like All the President's Men. Is probably closer.
Yeah, I think it's probably more in the vein of those, but it's obviously a much heightened situation. It's a life and death situation, and so it adds that intensity and that emotion to it. I mean, also I think the context of it taking place, at in Germany, not that long after the Holocaust, and seeing, that the German authorities like totally bungle this situation so badly, playing kind of like fast and loose with the situation. And then there's, I think, one of the aspects of the film that's really compelling is one of the kind of people, the central people in this film is a German woman who is kind of working there as a translator, and she becomes of vital importance in telling the story and is one of the central people who's kind of like running around figuring out all this stuff, like listening to police scanners and translating and going on the scene, and that angle is also very compelling, like her sense of responsibility as a German person to do the right thing and to do right by the Jewish athletes here, I think also adds a very compelling angle to the film.
So you saw September 5th on what, Paramount Plus? You said.
Yep.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. Yeah, I guess that's an opportunity for people to check it out. I think it's definitely something that I'd probably enjoy if I turned it on and watched it.
Yeah, I think you would. And at an hour and a half, it's really not. It's not like a large time investment compared to other kind of Oscar movies, which are a trend longer.
All right, and now I'm quickly gonna talk about one of the movies that I caught up with. I wanted to watch a movie in honor of Gene Hackman that I hadn't seen before, and I guess his sports drama Hoosiers is considered the best sports movie of all time, according to like an ESPN poll I found.
Wow. Damn. I mean, I know people like it, but I didn't realize they liked it that much.
Yeah, and this is Gene Hackman is a basketball coach that goes to this like Hodunk Town in Indiana, and he's going to coach a team of high school basketball boys, and help them achieve their wildest dreams. The story is based on a true story where this school did the impossible and came from this very small school and ended up making it all the way to the championship. Gene Hackman's character, he plays this coach that is like, he knows what he's talking about, obviously, but there's like some mystery about why he's there.
Yeah.
He seems like he's more qualified than he should be to do this school, and certainly that comes out as the movie goes along. And he has, this town expects to win, and they don't really understand his coaching style right away. But as they go along, they learn to appreciate what he brings to the table.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen this movie, so I don't remember much about it. I feel like I kind of vaguely remember his style of coaching was like tough but fair,
Yeah.
but maybe I'm misremembering.
Yeah, like at the very beginning, he's like, "Oh, we're not even going to shoot the basketball without passing it 4 times," and
That's right. He's a big like fundamentals passing kind of guy. Gotcha.
And yeah, there's a romance that didn't do much for me. With Gene Hackman's character, but it's there. But no, I think like it's a very good basketball movie. I also like Gina Prince Blythewell's movie that is about women's college basketball, Love and Basketball. I think that's an excellent.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's an excellent basketball movie, and also He Got Game. The Spike Lee movie,
another good
excellent
one.
So if you're looking for like a basketball movie as we get into March Madness season, you could do worse than any of those 3. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, and I look forward to watching more Gene Hackman movies in the coming weeks that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, that'll be fun to kind of delve deeper into his filmography, because even though he did retire, he did have a pretty big output.
All right, Evan, I think that wraps up our episode this week with the Oscars and Bong Joon-ho. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode, and we're almost, you believe it? We're in March. We're gonna get, before you know it, it's gonna be the summer movie contest again. Things are
I
moving
know.
along.
Damn. Yes, it is.
All right, and so from Evan and I want to thank you again for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.